It's past midnight and your thumb is already scrolling before your brain agrees to it. You call that brain rot. The internet's favorite joke about a mind turning to mush. But researchers just showed the joke is aimed at the wrong target. In May 2026, a study of 439 young adults in the journal Psychological Reports traced the real chain reaction hiding inside that scroll. The evidence says otherwise. Let's make it evident. Brain rot is not slang invented by TikTok. Henry David Thoreau used the phrase back in 1854, complaining in Walden that people preferred simple ideas over difficult ones, and calling that preference a kind of rot in the culture around him. The phrase went quiet for more than a century, then came back through short video culture as a joke about your own feed. By late 2024, Oxford University Press tracked something specific. Use of the term had jumped by 230% in a single year. More than 37,000 people voted, and Oxford named brain rot its word of the year for 2024, beating finalists like dynamic pricing, lore, and romantasy. A dictionary naming a word of the year doesn't prove anything about your brain. It only proves that a lot of people needed a word for a feeling badly enough to make it official. That's a fact about language, not neuroscience, and it's exactly the kind of fact the internet quietly upgrades into a medical claim. In May 2026, 3 researchers, Hassan Batmaz, Jamil Bushra Ozsar, and Halisa Arslan Shekeli, published a study in the journal Psychological Reports that tried to test the feeling directly. They surveyed 439 young adults, mostly university students, average age around 22. Participants rated their own scrolling-related fatigue, their burnout, their stress, their anxiety, and their depressive symptoms. Then, the researchers built a statistical model to see which of those actually led to which. Here's the part the joke gets wrong. Brain rot did not directly predict depression. That direct path wasn't statistically significant, but predicted depression was a chain. Brain rot fed burnout first, and burnout fed stress and anxiety, and only then did depression follow. The researchers called it a loss spiral, each stage draining the resources the next stage needed. So the mechanism is real, but it isn't a straight line from "you scrolled" to "you're depressed." It's an indirect chain, and burnout is the hinge everything else swings on. Here's the part almost nobody in the comment section mentions. The underlying mechanism was documented decades before TikTok existed. In 2001, psychologists Joshua Rubinstein, David Meyer, and Jeffrey Evans ran a series of experiments on something called task switching cost. Every time your brain changes what it's doing, it pays a small toll in speed and accuracy, even when the new task is simple, even when you've made the switch 1,000 times before. In 2009, researcher Sophie Leroy went further and showed that part of your attention actually stays behind on the task you just left, especially if you left it unfinished or under time pressure. She called this attention residue, and it doesn't clear the move on. It lingers into whatever you do next. A short feed is built to interrupt itself every few seconds on purpose because that's what keeps you watching. Each swipe is a fresh task switch, a new joke to catch, a new voice, a new pace, a new emotional register, and your brain never fully loads the last one before the next one starts. Do that for 40 minutes and you're not left with 40 minutes of content. You're left with hundreds of unfinished switches, each one leaving a little residue behind. A plausible, unglamorous explanation for the foggy, scattered feeling people call brain rot. If that sounds like a theory, a study published earlier this year gives it a physical signature. In February 2026, researchers Tiantian Hong, Konghui Su, Hui Zhou, Fengji Geng, and Yuzheng Hu published a brain imaging study in the journal Neuroimage. They scanned 56 young adults while those adults freely watched short videos, free to skip anything they didn't like. 2 regions stood out: the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex and the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the parts of the brain most associated with catching your own mistakes and reining in impulses. When participants watched videos they actually liked, both regions went quiet, their activity dropping below their own resting level. The two regions also talked to each other more during viewing, but in a coordinated way that looked like stepping back together, not sharpening focus together. People with higher resting levels of a brain chemical called glutamate showed less of that shutdown, hinting that some people's self-monitoring circuitry resists the pull more than others. None of this means your brain is being damaged. It means that during your favorite kind of video, the part of you that normally says, "Maybe stop now," gets quieter on its own, without asking permission. This is usually where the popular explanation shows up. It's your dopamine. The idea that scrolling floods, hijacks, or fries your dopamine and that you need a dopamine detox to reset it is one of the most repeated claims in this whole topic. And it misunderstands what dopamine actually does. Dopamine is not a pleasure chemical you can drain like a tank, and it is not a toxin that builds up. According to neuroscientists, including Nora Volkow, whose work maps the reward system in detail, dopamine mainly signals wanting and anticipation, not pleasure itself. That's handled by a separate system, built largely on opioid signaling. So detoxing from dopamine is a category error. There is nothing to flush out, because dopamine was never the toxin the phrase implies. What is real and documented across decades of addiction research is that repeated rapid reward cues can recalibrate how sensitive that wanting system is, so that after enough of them, ordinary, slower rewards start to feel flatter by comparison. That's not damage, and it isn't permanent by default. It's the same adjustable dial your brain uses for food, music, or any other reliable source of small hits. The honest version of the dopamine story is boring compared to the myth. Your brain isn't broken, it's adapting, exactly the way reward systems are built to adapt to whatever you feed it most often. Before this goes any further, here's the sentence that has to sit next to every number in this video. In September 2025, a team led by Lan Nguyen published a meta-analysis in Psychological Bulletin, pooling 71 studies and more than 98,000 participants. They found a moderate negative link between short video use and cognitive performance, with attention and impulse control showing the strongest links of the whole analysis. Not causation. The authors say this directly. Most of the underlying studies only measured people at a single point in time. A single snapshot can't tell you whether scrolling caused the attention dip, or whether people who already struggle with attention and mood are simply the ones who end up scrolling more. Both directions fit the same data. The May 2026 Depression Chain Study has the identical limitation. One survey, one moment, no before and after. So let's be precise about what actually stands on solid ground here and what doesn't. It does not prove that short-form video causes depression. The researchers found no direct causal link, only an indirect statistical chain in survey data collected at a single point in time. It does not prove that your dopamine system is damaged. The honest neuroscience describes adaptation and sensitivity, not injury. It does not prove that everyone who watches short videos will burn out, and it doesn't tell us whether quitting scrolling reverses anything, because no study here followed anyone over time. What it does show is a consistent pattern, repeated across a large meta-analysis and a brand new brain imaging study, that heavy use lines up with measurable differences in attention, self-control activity, and self-reported exhaustion. Pattern is not proof of a one-way street. And if a video ever tells you the science on this is fully settled, that's the moment to be more skeptical, not less. You don't need a lab to notice a smaller version of this yourself. Next time you finish a long scrolling session, time how long it takes before you can hold a single train of thought. Reading a paragraph, writing a text, following a conversation, without your attention snapping back toward your phone. Then compare that to how you feel after 10 minutes doing something with no switching at all, like a walk with your phone in your pockets. That gap is attention residue. Made personal, not a diagnosis, just a small testable observation about your own switching cost. And if scrolling is tangled up with something heavier than fog, persistent low mood, real burnout, anxiety that doesn't lift, that's worth bringing to a qualified professional who can actually assess you, not a video that can't. Brain rot turned out to be a strange kind of correct, not a joke and not a horror story either. It's a real measurable chain that starts with cognitive fatigue, runs through burnout, and only reaches depression indirectly, and only in some people, under conditions researchers are still mapping. The mechanism behind it isn't a broken brain chemical. It's a decades-old finding about attention and switching, wearing a new name for a new decade. If you want the evidence behind the strange things your own habits are doing to you, subscribe to Oddly Evident. Next time your feed pulls you back in at midnight, ask yourself one question: how many unfinished switches are you carrying right now?